So I do want to say this. We truly have become brothers over the years. So if I slip up and refer to him as P, I call him P. So I may slip up every now and then and just refer to him as P. So Philonise, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And what the audience may not be aware of, and I will share this. I know we talked a little bit about it before coming out on stage, is just 2 days ago, on the 14th, was the day that he was preparing to leave to come here, would have been George's 51st birthday. Yeah. And so I know he's carrying a lot of emotion with him today. So if you all would just grant us some grace if the conversation gets a little emotional. And I want to commend you for still being here, knowing what you're going through. And so your brother's death, your brother's murder, man, shook the nation. It shook the world. Mm-hmm. And we all know how it affected us. But if you could just, for a moment, just share with the rest of us how that impacted you and your family.
Well, it's a lot to talk about. The way that I even heard about it, I was a truck driver, so I was on my way to go to Oklahoma, and I wasn't doing no loads out of Texas. Everything was just there, meaning like I was gonna be home the same day. But that particular day, I received a phone call, and I probably was only driving for like 15 to 20 minutes, and I wouldn't answer the phone at the time because I was still trying to get, myself moving in the right direction. But somebody sent me a video, and I looked at the video and I seen a guy screaming, and I said, that sounds too much like my brother. And I called my cousins, and everybody was speaking on it. They was like, hey, yeah, that's him. I immediately pulled over. Tears were just running because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And a lot of you all might have seen it way before me, but the fact that I was moving in that direction, it just made me break into tears. And I immediately said, I got to get back home. My wife was calling. Everybody was calling. I made it. That same day, I ended up meeting Ben and everybody who came to the direction that same day. But the fact that that was detrimental to not just me and my family, but to people all around the world, because they all say, hey, that was George. They say George could have been my son. When you listen to a mother, you hear fathers say the same thing. You hear young men say that could have been my brother, my uncle, that could have been anybody. They were hurt because we were getting murdered at a rate in society like it was hunting season on us. And with me being able to be strong, I had the opportunity to speak the day after that. And just looking at this video continuously over and over, I just seen it's like a 4K motion cinema picture when you're watching it. It was a modern day lynching in broad daylight. And that's something that everybody's seen. It was a symbolic thing on George, because you never in life think that you would see something like that, because they say it didn't exist, but it does exist. And everybody was out there, even kids, older people. You had paramedics, different people who were engaged. And a guy that was like an ultimate fighter, he was engaged. So the fact that we seen so much and all of these people were able to speak on what they seen, God slowed the world down for everybody can pay attention to what was going on. And he just wanted everybody to see that people need to make change in life.
No, thank you, P. Now, since that tragic day back in May of 2020, you have really sought to honor your brother's legacy. And that was one of the things I was most impressed by when you and I first met, those initial words of how you wanted, and I believe you said you wanted to transfer your pain into purpose, is what I remember those words when we first met. Mm-hmm. And since then, you have been focused on activism, advocacy, and accountability. What has been some of the greatest successes that you've experienced since you've started this journey of advocacy, activism, and holding systems accountable to honor your brother's legacy?
From when the number one goal was, a lot of these families were affected, but being able to get out there and trying to get social change all across the world, I had the opportunity to get out there and go to war for my brother, and I spoke up for him, and I went to court, did so many different things, but just knowing that we did receive some type of accountability because it never happened before. And people were excited just to know that somebody who had murdered us was going to jail for it at the time. But the most impactful thing out of all that was these families, because people were still getting murdered at a rate. And the things that when I went into these homes, the mothers and the fathers, they'll be crying and families, but when I stepped into the room, it just went silent. Nobody was crying anymore. They felt that they had hope. And that was, to me, that was the most impactful thing that really made me feel like I'm doing something positive, because nobody's going to tell you what you're doing. You just got to get out and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you started a foundation, right, to achieve the level of accountability that you're talking about, to help achieve social justice for the betterment of all of us. Can you talk a little bit about that foundation?
Well, I started PACFISC. The acronyms are PAKFISC. It's the Philonise and Floyd Institute for Social Change. Me and my wife started it. We just wanted to make sure that we can sit there and address different things, meaning like prison reform, systemic racism. It's a lot of different issues we can talk about, but it's different things. We wanted to make sure that we can bridge the gap with police officers, because to me, the gap is getting wider every day, and the fact that somebody has to do it because they're not listening, and people have to take on that approach that we got to be united as one because we're stronger in numbers. And if we want to sit here and get change in this world, we got to work together, and we got to stay engaged as one, because me turning my pain into purpose is not enough. But when I can get everybody else get on that, then we can make a move that nobody has made in life. It'll be a transition of a lifetime.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that, focusing on being a bridge builder and helping people understand how to overcome those differences can be challenging, because there is a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. And that can lead to a lot of resentment, particularly with a lot of the, powers that be, if you will, law enforcement being one of them. So I'm really impressed, and I commend you for your willingness to seek ways to work with them and affect change from the inside. What have been some of your biggest challenges as you seek to honor your brother's legacy through the social justice movement?
Oh, just when you go into a lot of these rooms, a lot of people, they look at you in a strange way, because to me, they always felt like they had a lot of power and they can do what they wanted to do. Crazy part about it is, y'all might not have known, but it was a police officer who just received time in Houston. He gave my brother a drug case, and my brother kept telling me I didn't have any drugs on me. He just gave me a case. He always messing with people. He had so many people that was against him, but he received 60 years. About a week ago, he received 60 years because he did the same thing that Denzel Washington did in Training Day. He went into somebody else's home, and it was a Caucasian group, and he ended up murdering those two people, and he got 30 years apiece for both of them. So my point is, a lot of the stuff that they say about George, my brother was a guy that really didn't do anything. Even when the cases that they gave him, there was a little boy kept saying it's not him, but the police forced him to say it was him. So y'all can see what's going on with Central Park 5. Everybody, we can't change the outcome of anything when you get behind those closed doors. They do what they want to do. And this is the biggest thing we have to do. We got to get these people to understand we are human beings. We're not just 3/5 of a human, just like they said. We got to be able to be courageous. We got to be able to get out. If we got to protest and we got to stand in front of these businesses, we got to let these people know we've been here. And it's like a child doing everything right and nobody pays attention. But as soon as they start acting out, that's when everybody want to pay attention.
No, that's real. That's real, brother. I mean, that leads to why nationally, I think, young black males are suspended and expelled at a rate 4.1 times higher than their counterparts. And in the state of Minnesota, that's doubled. It's 8 times greater than their counterparts. And it's because of what you just said, the focus, the self-fulfilled prophecy, the kind of Pygmalion effect that we are on the receiving end of way too often. And we have to start changing the narrative, which is another reason why I'm so glad that this movement of Blackweek is in place to help change that narrative. What are some things that you think this audience could do as individuals and as with the organizations that they represent to help push this mission forward, the mission that you have with PacFist? What are some things that people could do individually and collectively to, like, some tangible things that we could do to help push the mission forward?
Well, the number one goal is everybody in this room, they need to speak out when they see some injustice. That's the number one goal. Speak out. Let these people know y'all cannot make laws for the elite and the chosen. You got to make them for the people who get out and vote and go to work every day. And hopefully they'll come home because they got kids and they're thinking about their children every day. So all of these organizations that we have, we need to focus on helping each other, helping us strive to be great in life. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in the projects. And a lot of us, we didn't have fathers. So we was going around searching for leaders. And, you know, we had Dr. King, we had Malcolm X, we had a lot of different people. And now we have Barack Obama, who everybody looks up to. Everybody loves Barack Obama. But, you know, it's because he's a figure in life that people look at and say, I want to be just like him. He became the president. So in the neighborhoods that we grow up in, you see nothing but negative things. You know, you see dealers and hustlers and pimps and all that stuff like that. And this is the people that they look at because they don't have men there to show them, don't focus on that. Focus on this. Paint a picture this way, not just with drawing lines. Make sure you paint the picture because it speaks 1,000 words. People need to have that understanding. These organizations that we have now, this is huge because a lot of people came out and they started being focused, they got engaged. And this is what I want to continue to be able to help with others, because I have no problem with going around helping with everybody's organization. I just need the time to be able to get there and show that I will be in support of them.
Thank you. Yeah, our voices matter.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times we are hesitant to share our voice out of fear of consequences or repercussions, particularly if you are one of the only ones that look like you in a certain environment or an organization. You know, there is a hesitancy to share your voice, but what I'm hearing from you is, you know, the risk is worth it, because that slight inconvenience or discomfort that you may feel from speaking up and sharing your voice, that pales in comparison to the outcomes and consequences that we're all experiencing if we do not share our voice and speak up when we see injustices taking place. Now, the title of this conversation that we're having, this fireside chat, is Broken Promises. Joe referenced that earlier in his introduction. And man, after your brother was killed, there were a lot of promises and commitments made. And with this recent attack and assault on DEI, it seems like a lot of organizations are reneging on those promises. I'd love to get your thoughts on whether or not you think organizations are living up to the promises that they've made, because you would know better than us as a member of the Floyd family, right? Do you feel as though these organizations are living up to the promises that they made just 4 years ago?
With these corporations, the first thing that we got to realize is they only want profit. That's the number one game for them. It's all about money. But when they do get out there and they put it, they still have to go to their shareholders. So when they do that, at the end of the day, if you're gonna say you're gonna commit something, that's like symbolic, what you're saying. But we haven't been seeing anything substantial from it. Because if you're gonna donate all these corporations together, just say they do 45 billion, and that's donated to basically banks to hold and stuff. But then you take another like 5 billion altogether, and you say I'm gonna donate to different organizations and stuff like that. But these organizations, from all the families that I've been around, they said they haven't received anything who started an organization. So where's the money going? And that's the number one thing to me, where's the money going? And I asked a lot of questions, and I heard people say, they did it for you to get loans for houses and things, different things like that. But either way, for what I took at it, they just want their money back. So they put it in the bank on purpose. They say, I'm gonna put this 45 billion, and then we're gonna get it all back. Because they just wanted to say, I did something.
So you don't think there was ever sincere or genuine intent from the beginning with a lot of these organizations? And I'm not going to suggest that it's all, because I am, I'm familiar with some. I was surprised when I was in Minnesota. I think it has the largest concentration of Fortune 500 companies in the nation. So I will say that there are a number of organizations that I've experienced that have stood behind their words, but unfortunately, in my experience, that's why I'm asking you, they have not been in the majority. That's been the vast minority of organizations. So how does it affect the community when you see these companies falling back on these promises? What type of effect or impact, or what message does that send to the rest of us when you make these promises, but then you decide, it's almost like, okay, we've resolved the issue, like, the issue still exists, so why all of a sudden do you think you don't have to support social justice anymore? So in your opinion, what message is that sending to the rest of us when these organizations draw back on their promises?
It's making a lot of people don't believe in you. To me, it's, you have to be able to believe in somebody. You got to have hope that something is going to go on in life. You have kids that were maybe, 12 years old, 13, 14, they were out marching for George. And the fact that they was like, when people say, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do this to be able to help with diversity and so on and so on, these kids are asking themselves, like, nobody has donated anything in the neighborhoods that they come from. Nobody has helped with nothing. I marched. I didn't see nothing at the libraries. I didn't see anything at my community centers. They're looking. They want to know, like, I can be George Floyd. So how can y'all say y'all going to help us and nobody's getting out there trying to help us? That's, to me, in the community that I grew up in, they would ask a lot of different questions, but people like Lil Baby, he came, the rapper, and he redid the basketball court where I come from, and they put George and a lot of stuff on the court. Trey the Truth, the rapper in Houston, he went and put computers and stuff inside of the community centers. These people were more involved, and they don't even have billions of dollars. They just know they have good hearts, and they wanted to be active in the community.
Yeah. What are some things that we have a lot of organizations represented here today, a lot of agencies represented here today. What are some things that organizations can or should be doing to show their commitment to this movement, to show their commitment to social justice, to show their commitment to change, even beyond the financial contributions? I mean, I think that's important. That's big, right? The money is necessary to affect change. We need resources. But what are some things you think organizations can and should be doing? The money, of course, but above and beyond that.
This is like the same topic when I was speaking to police officers in New Orleans, and I told them, if you all want these kids to want to be police officers and you want them to want to believe in you, you have to go to these neighborhoods and you got to play catch with them. You got to throw a football to them. You got to bring baseball gloves out. You got to play catch with them there. You got to do stuff with these kids because right now, y'all supposed to be heroes. So all I'm stating is get out in these communities, all these organizations, be active with these kids. Help them with their homework. Help show them different things. Like if you have the opportunity, take them fishing. Show them stuff that they don't see every day. Because to me, that's how you make change in this world. Because the people where I grew up with, they didn't know anything about fishing. Some of them never even been outside of Texas. They're stuck in one position because they don't know. If they don't know the way and you know the way, you got to show them the way. And if you can get out there and like just besides going to a basketball game and football games, teach them things that they're going to need in life to guide them to be able to get to these different schools and have a trade, you know, and get to college, do things to be what you want your child to be, you know. So that's the number one goal.
Right. So what I'm hearing is programs that can generate pathways and opportunities for educational achievement, economic empowerment, financial literacy. And then that comes through building relationships. And I know one of the things that's important to you is accountability. And it's very hard to hold someone accountable that you're not in a relationship with. And so if there is no relationship, it's going to be very challenging to develop a level of empathy and understanding for me to be able to affect the change that needs to take place. Right, I think one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King, and I'm going to paraphrase, is change is inevitable. We know change is going to happen, but the change that we seek will not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. We have to be very intentional about creating the change that we seek, the change that we want to occur. And if I'm not in relationship with you to understand not just how you feel about these circumstances and the environment that you're in, but why you feel the way that you do, then it's going to be very challenging for me to leverage my position, my platform, my power, my privilege to affect the change that's necessary to remove the ill will, the feelings of oppression that you are experiencing. And so what are some of the things that you have seen work through the efforts that you personally have been doing? Like, is there an organization that you have formed a good relationship with, that you have a good enough relationship with where you can have those uncomfortable conversations to help hold them accountable?
Well, going to all these different places to have conversations with people, it's so many organizations they everywhere. They all around the world. It still stands the fact that a lot of these people, they lost their loved ones, you know. So, and to me, those are more impactful than anything because these people are thriving because they lost somebody. And that's somebody that is going to always be an empty seat at the table, but they're still trying to be active in life. But it's beneficial when you have a lot of activists who get out because they knew they were out there marching because they knew what happened to their ancestors and they been wanting to make change. It didn't take for that particular time where somebody had to be lost. They was like, no, we finna get out here and we finna make change right now. And the hardest thing of all of it is trying to make sure you can guide your young men and your young women to be able to push the same agenda. Because y'all gotta remember, the agenda that you put on the table, they're trying to take it right back off the table. And you gotta put it back on the table. Yeah. And that's the number one. You gotta have structure. You gotta make yourself relevant. You have to be able to show who you are because the ambition is impactful to a lot of people. Because that's all you need. It's just an ounce of ambition. And I guarantee that these kids will follow you because that's what they're looking for, leaders. And you all are all leaders in here because you wouldn't be in here for nothing, for no other reason.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Philonise. And when I hear you say that, you know, I think about the importance of leadership, but also representation in leadership. I think when you talk about the agenda, I believe there are two schools of thought, at least from my opinion, is that we continue to perpetuate and create these environments that lead to these inequities and these disparities due to unintended consequences, and a lot of it is very intentional with the agenda that you talked about. But I think the unintended consequences can be addressed if we have more representation in these organizations. Someone that could hold us accountable to look at things through an equity lens and ask the equity questions. Is the decision that we're about to make, is the policy that we're about to make going to hurt any one particular people group more than another? Is it going to lend an advantage to any particular people group over another? This decision that we're about to make for all of these lives, whether the people are internal or external in the communities that we serve. And if you don't have anyone that even knows enough about that audience to challenge the decision that's about to be made, then you get those unintended consequences. So what does an inclusive organization look like? Like, what, in your opinion, like, what do we need to do to foster more inclusion in these organizations?
The number one goal is same thing we was talking about the corporations. You start looking at their staff. You know, a lot of these, when it comes to corporations, you got to see how diverse they are at the top. Most of the time when you're looking at an organization around, they have a lot of people from, it don't matter what nationality, they're on the staff because everybody wants to be united as one. But when you're looking at these corporations, it's not diverse as you think it might be because a lot of these people probably have all one culture versus some of them might have African American, they might have Hispanics. You know, they showing something. But at the end of the day, if everybody is having one option, they just put money over there because they don't want people to be able to come and say, okay, at least we did something so we out of it. There's a lot of people out here that may work for corporations, so y'all can look up into that and see where you stand at. You know what I mean? Because they say divided we fall. So we have to show and find out about it. But when it comes to these organizations, they're on the ground. You know, they're committed already. It's nothing up here. They're down here. They were out there when people was like Michael Brown, my brother George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, so many people, Eric Garner, they were there. And some of them never left the battlefield. And they're still there. And they didn't look at it as a moment. They looked at it as a movement. And this is something that these organizations, I say it all the time, you know, you got good people and you got bad people. You shouldn't have to sort them out. Some people want money. Some people don't care about that. They want what they want people to have in life. They want these people to be loved. They want these people to be able to be human beings. They want people to be able to enjoy themselves and not have to worry about being murdered. You know, these organizations, there's a lot true. You know, it's a lot. You know more than me. You know, because I know you've been out there.
I've been in them streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, what is something that you are most proud of that you've experienced, whether it's with an organization that you've worked with that surprised you, that you felt like, oh, wow, this is not what I expected, but I'm glad to see you reacting this way, behaving this way, or something that you've been able to do through your organization. Just on this journey, and you've done a lot. I've known you for the last 3 years, and so I'm very aware of a lot of the things that you've accomplished. Is there one thing that stands out in your mind that is particularly fulfilling that you've experienced? Well, I know you talk about Al a lot. You talk about Ben a lot. I mean, I don't know if it's them. It could be anyone. I know you're doing something with Adidas, and they just came through, and so I don't want to fill your head with any, but I'm just thinking of some of the things that I know I've heard you talk about. Yeah. And it could be something completely different. Is there anything particular that stands out that you're like, wow, this is very fulfilling that someone would take this approach?
Yeah, Al was there from the beginning. Al Sharpton, and from New York, y'all know what he is. He been pushing, and he hasn't fell back on anything. Um, Adidas, they stepped in and they helped me out a lot too. So all of these other like different corporations and stuff like that, I really didn't have nobody like that other than those two. But the people who donated funds all over the world, I distributed that money like to my sisters and brothers and stuff like that, so they can be better in life. Because at the end of the day, they still wake up crying. They thinking about George. My brother's birthday was on the 14th, and they were destroyed. They didn't want to talk to anybody. They didn't want to go outside. The news cameras was coming. They didn't want to see nobody, because at the end of the day, I can speak to you, but I still can't talk to my brother. So the fact still stands, like me doing everything with all these different organizations, it touches my heart, because the fact still stands. All of these people, they get out there, they be active, but when you see these families that have been affected, these are the people that break down. They don't want to have a part of life anymore. The fact that I can walk into these homes, like Tyree Nicholas' mother, she was going through a lot. And you just go there and you see her, she still is hurt, because she's a mother. She nurtured him, she carried him, and she lost her son.
Yeah.
The way that they made change and they want to be able to help what's going on in the world, but at the end of the day, they don't have to do nothing, but they're out here. And this is what I'm looking at in here. All of these mothers and fathers, families, it's a lot. It's a lot to talk about, because it makes me tear up just thinking about Breonna Taylor and so many people, because nobody was paying attention to nobody. Yeah. But as soon as my brother was murdered and I spoke out, that's when they understood what was going on. And I made sure I mentioned Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Ahmaud Arbery. You have to understand, Ahmaud Arbery, he was the charcoal, and Breonna Taylor was the lighter fluid, and my brother George was the flame that set this world on fire. And when that happened, it exposes so much, because you can't lie to nobody no more. It's there. It's in your face.
Yeah, that's something that I want to share publicly that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, is you've built relationships with all of those families, with Dante Wright, Eric Garner, Breonna. You've built relationships with all of those families and have been supportive of those families, because they didn't get the same spotlight that your family received, that you received, because of how visible that your brother's murder was. And so the platform that you have received, you've leveraged that to reach out and form a relationship and a bond with all these other families, and you are doing a lot to help those families who did not get as much attention as you and your family. So I commend you for that. I know we're at time, and so I don't see Jazz or anybody. I'm looking, so we are at time. So I want to just say thank you, Philonise, Floyd, for sharing your story with the rest of us, and thank you all for being here. And we look forward to the opportunity to continue to building these bridges of equity and equality with each and every one of you. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you, Philonise.
Thank y'all.